Hello everyone, how are we all doing? How are we all doing? I've got Anthony Woodcock with me today. He's reached out to me and he's asked me to come and have a talk with him about this millennial reign topic, which is taking everything by storm right now in the truth of culture. And Anthony, how are we doing?
Good man. How you been? Been a few years.
It has. What's it been like 8 years or something? It was amazing because I was looking back at you came on a truth or therapy session with me, like episode like 8 or something. I'm on like 52 now, and I remember I think we talked about the Las Vegas
Oh yeah. Don't say
event. You
that.
know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you remember
I
that
thought we were
thing?
talking about DMT or something. I remember that.
Oh yeah, yeah. We talked
Yeah,
about
that's
it
what it was.
a lot of
Yeah,
things, and
it's
I
like a
think
Joe Rogan thing back then.
back in the
That was
day,
good stuff.
old
Yeah.
school, old school.
Oh yeah. That was a long time ago, man. Yeah, and it's interesting. You're talking about some of the stuff I talk about a lot of stuff, but you're talking a lot about the Millennial Kingdom and stuff. So I find it to be rather curious. I actually wonder if it is true, and then the more I research it, the more I believe it. So
It's one of those, isn't it?
yeah.
It's got that feel to it. You know, when you first discovered the next big truth or topic back in the day, whatever it was that would turn up, whether it was Mandela effect, that was a big one,
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
it? It's got that vibe to it. This topic in particular, and yeah, I mean, I've only just really started to talk about it on my channel like 2 months ago. But I've been watching it for like 3 years and just paying attention to the players involved and the people talking about it. And it's like you said, the more you listen to it, the more it's kind of, man,
Makes sense.
we need to talk about this. This is not something we
Oh,
can just
yeah.
sweep under the rug. And I don't
I thought it
know.
was a little crazy at first, I remember, I think it was like 3 years ago when I first saw it too, and I was like, could that really be the case? I mean, if that's the case, then that means a lot of things are not what they say, with regards to history. And it makes you really wonder at first glance. And of course, when you're taught in church about the millennial kingdom, they tell you, oh, everything's gonna be perfect. It's like heaven, and of course, people just assume the entire earth is a millennial kingdom and everything's perfect and lion lays with a lamb or whatever. Actually, that's a Mandela thing too.
Hmm.
But but actually, I'm thinking like it's a kingdom, a very large kingdom, and then there's maybe stuff outside it, because you had like the Muslims, I guess you would say, and all that stuff going on around 500, uh, you know, 80 or whatever.
Hmm.
So could they have been outside the kingdom? You know what I mean? I was something I always wondered about as well with regards to it, but because it seemed like they're very much against it, they're like coming against it the entire time, right? So,
It's well. This is the thing. Many people have taken many different angles to this topic. Either complete revisionist history, so you revise everything we know and just
oh
remove.
yeah, okay, I guess you could say that too. Some could go that direction, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people have just said a lot of what we've been told just didn't happen, basically, and time has been added that doesn't exist. And it, maybe 1,000 years has been added to the timeline is a really common one. You hear quite a lot when people discuss this topic. Things like the Dark Ages, for example, that period from 500 to 1,500 was the millennial reign of Christ. But it didn't begin in 500, as they say. When Rome collapsed, it actually began in 70 AD. So they have to move it all along, and then
Oh,
it's complicated to get there. You have to condense that early church 500 years before the collapse of Rome. And they're trying to say, well,
oh man,
all that happened in like 50 years, it didn't happen in 500 years. So it's kind of,
right.
yeah, you can get.
No, so it's kind of like the book of Revelation, like you could take it a million different directions. So, yeah, actually, when you said 70 AD, did you know about the chariots in the clouds in 70 AD?
Josephus, Flavius
Yeah,
Josephus wrote
Flavius
about that, didn't he? Yeah,
Josephus.
yeah.
It's not
Uh,
just him though. Others did too, Tacitus, and there's like
yeah.
three historians, and it's major historians. It's not like just some guys making it up or something, throwing it in a book,
Hmm.
right? And so that always made me wonder if that was like the first return. And then he returned for his disciples because he said, "Behold, I come quickly." And he's talking to John, saying like, "What if it is?" And he's saying to the other disciples, "What if John's still alive when I come back?" Right?
Hmm.
I'm like, "Well, that would sound like he'd have to come back pretty quickly."
Hmm.
Maybe it was 70 AD when they saw chariots in the clouds, when surrounding Jerusalem, I think it was, or something.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
what he did. He came to make war. That's the whole point of his second coming. He comes with a sword. He doesn't come to bring peace
So
immediately.
some are saying that that 70 AD is like the 500 AD. Because you know about Pope 666 or Pope Sixtus the third?
People have been mentioning that in the comments to
Yeah,
me. I'm not an expert in that. Do you want to
right.
cover that one for me and fill me in on
Well,
what's
there's
going on
that. I
there?
don't even know if I can do a screen share because like I said, just starting to do all these interviews myself on Skype, and I'm recording right now as well. I have a video. I found a very strange video on YouTube that has very few views as well. Where is it? Here it is. Let's see if I can do a screen share on this thing. I'm trying to remember how to do that. Here we
I
go.
think
Share
you can.
screen.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
I can see that. Yep.
It's the channel's called Saints and Sinners. It's got 13 subscribers, so not exactly a huge channel.
That
And it's the only, and what's so weird about it, like you can't find any information on this guy hardly. Saint Sixtus or Pope Sixtus III. You have to really dig to find anything. And what's interesting, if you look at his references, he references tons of books that obviously you're not going to find a lot of that content on Google or the internet or anything. It even references the Epic of Gilgamesh and a lot of other ones. But he says some really interesting stuff about this guy. He's like the first really creepy type of, I don't know how you would want to call it, but the guy basically considered the nuns like his wives. So,
Mm.
like, basically, he said, well, see, we're the bride of Christ. These nuns are dedicated to Christ. So I'm sitting here in the place of Christ on earth. So they're mine while he's gone. And apparently he got accused of doing things like RAPE. I know I'm not going to say the word because of your channel, you know. But, and what's interesting is those that accused him mysteriously die, things like that, getting poisoned, and just like, what is up with this? And he apparently bribed a ton of judges and things too. And according to the all the stuff around him, there's even a legend. I saw it on an atheist channel that he required people to get the mark to
Mm.
buy or sell. I don't know if I don't. It's so weird about it is you can't really find any information on this. And what I've noticed when I do a lot of research on this topic is I'll find stuff in the Encyclopedia Britannica that won't be on Wikipedia. And like for instance, AM1. AM1 is the first timeline, which is what Flavius Josephus references, which is and actually I can show this too. Where is that at? I got a million windows open here. Come on, where you at? Here it is. So Flavius Josephus, Samaritan Pentateuch, Greek Septuagint all use this timeline, AM1.
Hmm.
Even like Saint Theophilus, if I'm saying it right, of Antioch. Lots of the early church anti-Nicene guys use this AM1 timeline. And now they've just completely pretty much buried it and deleted it from the internet because what they call AM1 now is AM3. AM3 is like the Masoretic one, which is the one over here. It's corrupted.
Hmm.
The five saying that we're in 5,874 or whatever in the Hebrew calendar is actually the AM3, and the AM1 was like we're in like 7,500 timeline.
Hmm.
So like we're in the year seven, so we're like way after the Millennial Kingdom. We're at like 7,500. We're 500 years after the Millennial Kingdom. So
Yeah, but there's actually a lot of work has been done, and I've talked to a lot of people who are working on this concept. Someone called Noel Hadley has also tried to
oh
explain
yeah,
this
I
as well.
interviewed him.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
interviewed him.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking. I'm actually going. I had him on my channel to share all of his stuff, and he's invited me to come onto his channel tomorrow to discuss just my other work as well and other things, just as like a courtesy. So I'm looking forward to speaking to him again. But
Oh yeah.
he brought up, and I've heard plenty of other people mention that it's 5,500 years is when Christ was supposed to return. Like
Right. Yep.
it's
Yep.
been repeated over and over again as prophecy all throughout the Bible that that's exactly when it was
Oh yeah.
supposed to. So what you're showing here is an example of how they've tried to change where we think we are in that timeline and how
Right.
they're trying to tell us, oh, it's only been about 5,500 years now, and Jesus is about to return. But to do that, they've had to like shorten the lifespans of people in the Bible and mess with the genealogies and trim things here and there, and it's fascinating. Yeah, what else have you got here? Looks interesting. It's
No,
like,
this is actually his work. This is Noel's one of his texts that he wrote, where it actually shows in the various texts in the Apocrypha, or I guess it would be Pseudepigraphia. First Adam and Eve, 5,500 years were fulfilled. At that time, I'll give you the fruit of the tree of life to Adam.
yes.
And it's got some really interesting stuff. It says, like, here's second Adam and Eve. At the end of a great 5 days and a half, concerning which I've made a promise to thee and thy father, I will send my word and save thee and thy seed, which It's kind of the reference to the Logos right there.
Mm-hmm.
And Book of Adam, 5,500th year, the beloved Son will come upon the earth, resurrect Adam, and will be baptized in the river Jordan. And then you got like the Gospel of Nicodemus, I think it is, where it says this as well. It talks about 5,500 years. And there's even one that talks about the 6,000 year mark, which is really interesting, where it references Elijah and Enoch as the two olive trees. It says that they come at 6,000 years in the Greek Gospel of Bartholomew. So everyone always wonders, which are the two olive trees? Who are they? Elijah, Enoch? This apparently tells you who they are. And apparently they came at the time of the fall of Rome, if I'm understanding it correctly. Maybe I'm wrong. But like I said, like you said, they could have changed the timelines of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is, guess who was friends with Pope Sixtus III?
Was it Nero?
No, actually,
No.
Pope Sixtus III was actually in 440 AD.
Okay.
So if you follow what I came up across with is there's this, here we go. There's this article here. Oh, wow, it's not loading right. Let's see if maybe there's something wrong. There it goes.
We go.
Fall of Rome, Theophilos 6,000 year prediction. And if you go through this, and I don't want to go through it all here, but basically what happens is you have the fall of Rome had 3 Germanic tribes conquer Rome. And it says in Daniel that while I was considering the horns, suddenly another horn, a little one, came up among them. The 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it, and it had a mouth that spoke arrogantly. Now, the 3 horns, according to how this guy looks at it, is it's the 3 Germanic tribes that conquered Rome, and they all gave power to the Pope. And so the Pope spoke arrogantly. And of course, like I said, this is around the time of Pope Sixtus III. And technically, Rome fell from like, I think 415 to 475 AD, somewhere like there's like 3 falls.
Yeah.
And he was like right in the middle, the Pope Sixtus III. And it says in Revelation, watch out for that number, which means that's like the time of the end. And what's interesting, if you look at the Encyclopedia Britannica, it talks about like how Jerome and Augustine were trying to convince people that the millennial kingdom wasn't coming. So apparently Jerome and Augustine was friends with Pope Sixtus III before he became a pope. So Augustine is our considered the father of theology for both the Protestant and the Catholic Church. What if the devil put him as our father of theology to sort of, kind of skew our understanding of the Bible? And so Jerome is, so Augustine was friends with Pope Sixtus III. And apparently Pope Sixtus III, there's like actually a ton of stuff. I have a researcher that looks into all this stuff, but there was something about him coming out of the sea. His name meant something about coming out of the sea. Like it says the beast comes out of the sea in Revelation. So like we came to the conclusion that basically the fall of Rome, and this is what like the Encyclopedia Britannica talks about, how all the Christians at the time knew that the millennial kingdom was going to come right around the time of 450 AD. And St. Augustine came out with a calendar called AM2, where he tried to say that Jesus was born, I think it was 300 years earlier or later. Here it is. So here we go. Let me read this. Augustine, perceiving the danger of apocalyptic millennialism, developed a new and more stringent ways to oppose it. Jerome introduced a new set of calculations, AM2, that placed the incarnation roughly 300 years earlier, thus allowing Latin chronographers to ignore the advent of the year 6000 AM1. And now today, like if you look up AM1, it'll tell you AM1 is AM3. So they're still trying to make you believe we're in this AM3 timeline, which means like we still haven't reached the year 6000, right? Because we're at 5.8. Like the millennial kingdom's in the future. And of course, you have the Schofield Bible, which is where everyone got, like Tim LaHaye and all these guys got the idea of Left Behind. We haven't had the millennial kingdom yet.
Yeah.
And that comes from the Schofield Bible, which was funded by the Rockefeller's.
It is quite a new theology. A lot of people don't realize that as well.
Yeah.
The whole rapture thing and all that is actually relatively new in comparison to the timescales. I mean, this is fascinating what you're showing me here. And so even then, in what's this, the year 400 around about, even then it's they've added 300 or something here, or they've messed with the timeline massively here.
Jerome.
Yeah.
Jerome was also the guy who first tried to put to make the Bible only 66 books. He didn't like the Apocrypha. So he was a Catholic, and this is way back in the 400 timeline.
So something dodgy happened around that time period. Because again,
Yeah,
I do believe it even says in Revelation, when which is given to John as a prisoner on the island of Patmos by Jesus Christ. He's saying to John, "Go out, tell everybody about this, because the time is nigh. It's now. It's coming right now. Like this is about to happen. And
right.
the opening line is like something like, I've got it written down. It's something like the time is at hand. This is it. This is about to happen. Things that must shortly come to pass. Over and over again. That's what Revelation is saying. Clearly, it's about to happen. Not sometime in the future. It's
2,000 years
it's
later.
right around the corner. Tell everybody immediately what I have told you, John. Go, 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 go. Urgency, pure urgency behind his tone and voice. And again, this idea that, well, it came 500 years later when Rome collapsed. I don't know. I think something weird happened. That time period is a cloud of mystery with strange characters
Right.
going on. But this Pope
No, I
Sixtus.
mean,
Go ahead. Sorry.
there's a lot there too because you got the Vatican Library, right?
Hmm.
And they created that around 1475 AD, which would re see, I had a dream actually about like I actually had a dream about this all um about a year and a half ago. And in my dream, it had a scene that looked very much like this movie, The Pope's Exorcist, where they find the secret room. And it's like an ancient Vatican type room. And there was like a judge in there. It was like a skeleton, and he was using his gavel in my dream. And it was like a really weird dream, but it led me to this understanding that the timeline of the Millennial Kingdom was like basically 450 AD to 1450 AD, somewhere in there, like basically the Middle Ages.
Hmm.
Um, and I think Joan of Arc was around the time the devil got out of the bottomless pit, according to my dream. Now, of course, the dream I could be wrong, or maybe I'm misinterpreting it, or whatever you might want to say. But in the dream, I was in a movie theater too, and people were talking about this woman, and she heard voices and like, were they from God? Were they from the devil? So this is what I had all these breadcrumbs in my dream that led me to understanding what this was all about. Because there's a guy named Gilda Ray who is friends with Joan of Arc, and he was the first serial killer in like 1,000 years almost. Uh, he killed like I don't want to get into all. It was really bad what he did. It was like the worst you can imagine to the most innocent,
Hmm.
if you know what I mean. The
Okay.
worst things you could ever do. I mean, 100 of them or more. So I mean, this is not normal. Okay, not even
No.
remotely. And I mean, from what I understand, what was really weird is on Google, like I did a search on serial killers, and they actually had them all listed, and there was like almost 1,000 year gap between him and the one before it. And then after I talked about it on YouTube, it disappeared. And I've had that happen multiple times where I've talked about something and then the page will disappear on Google, or like a website I used to use will like recently I talked about the Book of Esther and how there's a chapter removed. And it's about a dream of two dragons fighting. And after I talked about it, the page disappeared. And it was like almost the only page on the entire internet talking about it. I'm like, what happened?
Hmm.
Like this happens all the time. It's so weird. It's like, is somebody watching my videos and then going in and like deleting stuff, or what's going on?
Well, I've been talking to Vicky Joy Anderson, and I've been thinking about this myself, and I'm wondering if AI has been sentient for a very very long time, and
Oh, yeah.
is basically now just editing everything as it learns new information. Like you're saying, as soon as it goes out into the internet, an algorithm picks it up very quickly, and then goes and plays editor and removes things, And I'm wondering if we're living in that time, to be honest, because like I do understand that we're at least what 20 to 50 years ahead of us in terms of technology to what we actually see in the public, and we can
Oh,
see
yeah.
with our own eyes now what AI is capable of, and it's pretty intense. Just on our level, what do they have? What have they been using exactly? To what level is this technology really perfected? And it's something I think it's something we have to also consider, just playing devil's advocate here, when we're actually researching this topic as well. Because it could be that a lot of these Tartarian photos that are turning up in these buildings, maybe it could be being orchestrated in some way. Just to
Oh,
play devil's advocate, what if
well,
we are in tribulation and a lot of things are being changed to make us believe we're not? Maybe, I
well,
don't know.
I know what you're saying. I actually was thinking the same thing. About a few years ago, I started to notice just the way things were in society. I was starting to wonder if there was some sort of AI already running things in some respects, because it seemed too coincidental how things were running, and too perfect in orchestration in some cases, and
Mm,
it made me really wonder that. Um, so there might be something to that regarding like the whole thing, like with like I've heard stuff like that with regards to the Mandela, like where they say uh, these verses changed. And what's interesting is I remember, because thank God I was actually studying some of that stuff when I was out of college, because I remember specifically some of these verses that people are misinterpreting and thinking like that was changed and stuff, because I was really into memorizing stuff, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And there were some verses that I think what it was is it was the NIV and the KJV, where there was a time where the NIV got very popular for in the 90s, and people started remembering the NIV version of it, and then
Hmm.
they thought it was the KJV, and then they're like, what happened here, you know? So I think in some cases that's what that was, but I don't know. I can't say I can't attest that for all the verses, but it's the same idea. Like, did they change something that we thought was the same? And in reality, that is kind of what the internet is,
Hmm.
because the Encyclopedia Britannica was printed and on your bookshelf back in the 80s and 90s. And that's why when you go to the Encyclopedia Britannica on the internet currently, you will find this old information. They've made these things not available anymore. So, like, Teteria was a kingdom in the Encyclopedia Britannica, but in Wikipedia it is not. And
Hmm.
of course, there's also this recent find with the CIA, A documents about how Teteria was something that was deleted in Russia via the whole atheistic revolution that went on there.
Hmm.
And there was actually documents that were released that say that. So, of course, apparently they wanted to erase it everywhere, including here, which
Hmm.
means they're on board with that, erasing it here.
Oh yeah, well I've actually just finished editing a video which is being released tomorrow, and it's a clip from an interview I did with some other guys just talking about this topic, question the narrative they were called. They were on their podcast, and I was discussing how it seems like the early wars of the 20th century that involved heavy artillery, World War I, World War II. You know, these big wars that basically was centered around that European Russian area more than anything. Obviously, it was widespread and went as far as the Middle East as well, and Suez and all these type of things, and Morocco, and yeah, obviously it spread. But it seems like Europe got a battering in those like early decades of the 20th century. I mean, absolutely just carpet bombed, annihilated, and the amount of old world architecture that was just removed from history and no longer exists because of that event. It's uncanny. And again, the Bolshevik Revolution, the war against the Empire of Russia, and all these happened in that early time period as well. Communism rose, and then in World War II, we had the communists were pretty well entrenched by that point, and then it's just been chaos for the Europe and Russia. We're predominantly we find most of these beautiful, perhaps evidences of the millennial reign. I mean, Dresden, for example, was utterly just was probably the most beautiful city to ever exist, and it's practically gone now. There's nothing left, and there's remnants, the odd building here and there of what was there, and I don't know. I mean, yeah, yeah, a lot of it's been history has just been completely erased, like you said.
I kind of agree with you on that. Like Noel mentioned something about King Henry VII that went through and destroyed a lot of these buildings as well. That was around the time of. Did he mention to you about the dragons, the two dragons fighting?
Yeah, he said
Like concept.
I watched his video about it. He had a short video, didn't he, where he was talking about the Anglo-Saxons, Camelot, the fall of Camelot, and the mythologies of the red dragon and the white dragon. I'm not an expert on that kind of history, but when
Okay,
when
right,
I
yeah.
heard him explaining it to me, I was like, that's the symbolism's clearly there for the fall of their empire. Their say, their kingdom that they were trying to build was cut short. Basically, Camelot was
Mhm.
cut short, and then the millennial reign came instead.
The Saxons came in right for 1,000 years,
Yeah.
and actually, from what I understand, because I just put out a video yesterday on my main channel, but actually, I'm going to be putting it also on my backup channel next. So the next video on my backup channel is going to be specifically about this.
Hmm.
Uh, we're actually in that time again. It's been 500 years since King Henry the Seventh, and if you look at his crest and look at King Henry the Sixth, King Henry the Sixth had a white dragon, two white dragons, or a white dragon a white dragon and a bird. King Henry the Seventh had a red dragon and a white dog, and so they specifically changed it to the dragon color. And also, that's what I was talking about. The thing that got erased, the Book of Esther, the chapter that was removed from the Book of Esther is about what's really interesting. The two chapters removed from two inspired books in the Bible are ones about dragons.
Hmm.
The Bell and the Dragon in Daniel, and the dream of Mordecai in Book of Esther, which is about two dragons fighting. It was a world struggle, and it was all about Israel and Haman and Mordecai and all that kind of stuff, right? And apparently, Merlin the magician also had this dream, exactly the same type of thing. And they even referenced the book of Esther when they were interpreting the dream. So this chapter is extremely important for understanding world, power.
Hmm.
But they don't want you to read it. And there's actually a chapter in Second Esdras, chapter 14, that predicts its own removal from the Bible. It's an apocryphal text, Second Esdras, and it says there will be 24 books that will be read by the righteous and wicked, and then there will be 70 books hidden, and there's 94 total. And this is back in the Old Testament time, right? So
Hmm.
24 is if you look up the Hebrew Tanakh, and I think I'm still sharing, maybe I shouldn't be sharing anymore. Have I been sharing this whole time?
It's
Hebrew
okay.
Tanakh has 24 books in it. So it's exactly right. It's predicting there will only be 24 books. Hebrew Tanakh, how many books? Maybe I put how many books. Yeah, there we go. Oh, wait. Books, right? 24 books, right?
Hmm.
So, of course, that's 39 in the modern translations. 39 equals to 24. But 70 are hidden. And of course, the word apocrypha means hidden.
Hmm.
So, one of these chapters, of course, that was hidden is this one from the book of Esther talking about the two dragons fighting, which apparently we're in that year. We're in the year of the dragon. We're also in the year of the open door. And so I think there's something there that we're going to be seeing a change of powers potentially this year. Or usually what happens either is you have a massive world, WAR, or you have a change of power that's sort of kind of like what you saw in Esther, where it just somehow goes right, which is
Hmm.
what I hope we end up having, not the other one. Yeah,
But this thing, a lot of people have been trying to interpret modern day events through the lens for decades now that Christ is about to return, and we're seeing signs of tribulation coming.
right. He
And
could very well be returning anytime. Very well. I mean, if it is the white dragon we're going to be under, it could be with him. I mean, it could be also a precursor where you have a couple hundred years where everything is a lot better, and then he comes back. Who knows? I don't know how it works, but
who well, it's all in his kingdom at the end of the day. but
right, yeah,
what I find interesting is that, like I said, most people have been interpreting every world event and every player on the world stage through the lens of, are they the Antichrist, are they the beast,
right,
are they
right,
the
right.
false prophet, is this the
Yep.
mark of the beast, is this the tribulation coming to pass, when's the rapture going to happen? But this topic we're talking about here, changes everything. Like,
Oh yeah, it's like seeing the forest from the trees, and also understanding if the devil was in the bottomless pit, and if we are in the time after that, it says that he will go forth to deceive the nations.
mhm.
What's a good way to do that? Erase history, change things, lie about everything.
Mhm. Well, it says in
You know,
Daniel, does it not? In the same prophecy you read earlier in Daniel 7, it says he'll seek to change times and seasons and
right.
and change the laws and everything will change, including the time we think we're in. Like, he would change everything to the point where we don't know who we are or where we are or even when we are. We're completely lost in a false narrative he will have created for us. And a big part of that
Quite
is
literally, even in a culture war with gender and all this. I mean, like people literally don't know who they are anymore, right? So,
exactly, and it's just the thing. Like, if Satan was released to rule for a little season, it would look something like what we're living in right now, wouldn't it?
yeah,
You can
I
you
would,
just
I
you
would
just
assume so.
you just feel it. You feel it in your soul, don't you? Like,
Yeah,
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 this feels like something Satan would be doing. Like that. But again, this is shocking for a
yeah.
lot of people. This is going to cause a huge schism in, like, Christian circles. I mean, there'll always be that mainstream line of Christianity that isn't conspiratorial at all, that will never entertain this topic. You know,
Well, honestly, the question is it really conspiratorial? Because I mean, look, the fact is we've seen so many crazy things over the last few years, and at this point, what is really conspiracy,
hmm.
Like it's just trying to understand the world, right? And looking at it a way that is not approved by others. It's not approved. We don't like it. Stop listening to those people. They don't know what they're talking about. And it's really interesting because they want you to believe one thing, and it's like it's either Coke or Pepsi. Now, what if it's in between? Like what if maybe both are wrong, right? So that's kind of how I look at it because I think the devil set up both. He set up the sort of like the theologies, a lot of the just to get you off on the wrong track.
Hmm.
So you're like a babe in Christ, but you never grow because you just don't even know what's going on. You don't even know who you are, or just go into the world and just do whatever, right? It's one of the two.
Hmm.
Uh, Either have him and be completely dumb, or don't have him and have knowledge in other areas, kind of like in the occult. They're looking into things and they understand things. Christians don't have a clue about any of this stuff, you know. I
Hmm.
had a friend, the guy that does research for me, he was in the occult for a long time before he became a Christian, and he knows a lot. I mean, he shows how they actually understand symbology and what's written in text and all this stuff. A lot of Christians are just like, oh, that's crazy. What are you talking about? You know,
Hmm.
like they just think everything's straightforward and everyone's telling the truth and stuff, you know.
Well, like I said,
So
I've been talking about this for a couple of months, and it's interesting to see the visceral reaction, even just considering that we may be in the little season gives to people. Like you can tell a lot of the comments they get are like knee jerk reactions. They haven't thought it through before they say what they're saying, you know, and
right,
and you can kind of read in the long all capitals paragraph they leave me that they're actually battling with the idea. You can see they're actually fighting with it as they type, you know, like no, like it's kind of like no, it can't be this can't be right. Surely not. It's that kind of attitude because we
right,
would know, right? Surely we would know. We would be able to tell, right? There'd be evidence. And it's kind of, but you can hear. I can hear between the lines of what they're typing. There's a doubt now, and I'm not trying to like destroy people's faith by just talking about the idea. If anything, I think it strengthens my faith a lot more now. I've
right.
understood this concept, and once it really sinks in, it proves even more that it's real. Jesus is real. He's been here. He's walked. He's ruled over us in a physical sense. That's incredible. There's evidence for it. You know, that's an incredible thing. It's no
And,
longer
and
faith
yeah,
alone. You know, it's more than that now. But sorry, go ahead.
no, you're right, man. I think there's more than one topic like that. The hell topic is another one. When we start actually researching the ancient languages, you find out there's multiple locations in the afterlife. And the way they the simple, you know, McDonald's Christianity will tell you, oh, you're either in heaven or hell right when you die. And you know, in the early church, they believe that there's like Hades, which is actually the afterlife. So, and that's what's weird when you look at the Old Testament, you look at the New Testament, it looks like it's talking about completely different things. Like, you know, you're in the grave in the Old Testament, and then in the New Testament, you're in hell or you're in heaven. When in reality, they're using the same. The Sheol and Hades are actually saying the same thing. You're in the afterlife.
Hmm.
So in the grave means you're in the afterlife. They're just mistranslating it, making it look different. And then in the New Testament, you're in the afterlife. And there's upper and lower levels according to the early church fathers. Like, you know, when he said to the thief on the cross, "Thou shalt be with me in paradise." Paradise, where is that at? And a lot of people just assume it's in third heaven, when in
Hmm.
reality it says, I think they're actually in a heavenly place, but are they in third heaven yet? You know, and then it comes back to the judgment. It's very complex. It's not the
Hmm.
simple, you know, thing that they try to put everywhere. And the same with a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of topics like this, but yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. Well, again, that whole what happens when you die situation. I've tried to get to the bottom of that myself. It's again,
It's complex
it's
too.
far more complicated than I think we can comprehend from our perspective. And I think a lot of people are scared to not know things, and I think they like to have that cut and dry answer in their brain to make things just simple, so they can get on with their life and to feel like they understand. But I've always been of the philosophy it's that reality is far more complicated. God's creation is far more psychedelic and insane than we can literally perceive or understand. I take the same attitude when it comes to cosmology as well, about the shape of everything.
Oh yeah,
I would
it's
literally
hard.
I would not align
Complex.
myself with a faction because I think it's way more complicated than we can even map. We can't make a model. We're not God. We don't see it from his perspective, you know. And I think with like again with a lot of these things like eschatology, end times, or you know, death and the soul and the spirit and how it all interacts with creation and afterlives. It's one of those that you're going to find out when it happens to you. This is you will learn through experience situation. It's kind of, and I'm okay with that, which is why I think I've managed to deal with this topic quite well. Like it hasn't been a system shock necessarily for me to consider that maybe we're in the little season, but for a lot of
Right.
people, it's shaking them up, and
I
they're
mean,
you know.
it was even kind of, I mean, because I've seen a lot of different weird theories of everything, but that was one of the bigger ones. When I saw that, I'm like, oh, what? You know, it took me a little while,
Hmm.
and I mean, if it made me think that way, like, am I crazy? What am I seeing here? You know, and then the more you look into it, it sounds more and more realistic and probable, and then but at first I was like, it sounded crazy, you know?
Hmm.
And even for me, and I'm like already into all this stuff. So you can imagine someone that's not even into it at all. They're like, what are you talking about? You completely lost your mind, you know?
Hmm.
I could see that. There's a lot of people probably like that. I saw that with the hell topic too. When I would talk about it, people are just like, what? Like you can actually get out of hell, maybe? Like, are you crazy? Because like if you look at the early church fathers, some of them talk about this, that you
Mhm,
could actually repent and get out of hell. And not referring to the lake of fire, but like the temporary one that's current right now.
mhm.
And they just, it blows their mind, and they're like, what are you talking about? And then they actually think that like I'm like this is somehow against the faith. Like, when actually, if you look at the creeds never says thou shalt believe that hell is eternal and you can never escape there.
Mhm.
That's not part of the creed, the Apostles' Creed or any of those. Like, they just assume, like, because you hear all these pastors, they say all these very specific viewpoints, and then like if you don't believe them, you're a heretic, when it's like a completely incorrect way to use the word heretic.
Mhm.
Like in the early church, it was all about just the Apostles' Creed. Do you believe Jesus is who he said he was? And did he die and raise from the dead and all this kind of stuff, right? So, what you recite in the church is the actual the orthodoxy right there. I mean, then the other stuff is kind of up for debate, a little bit. It goes to a certain extent, right? So,
Well, you had the
it,
Nicene Creed turn up in like 300, around about 340 or something like that, which then added that the apostolic succession of the Catholic Church is supreme, and all these type of things were kind of
well,
included
they
into it, you
added
know.
another thing too. They added the filioque, which is saying that the Holy Spirit comes from the Father and Son, when it never said. The original one said it came from the Father, I think, only.
Hmm.
So they tried to make the Holy Spirit the lowest.
Hmm.
But actually, I think the Holy Spirit is probably equal to Jesus,
Yeah.
because that's how some of the early church fathers saw it, is like the head was the Father, and then the two arms were Jesus and
Hmm.
the Holy Spirit.
Well, you're talking to a
So,
non-denominational Christian here. I don't join
yeah,
churches for these reasons. I just try and
right.
read the word and wrestle with God the best I can to get to the bottom of what the truth is, you know. And I think that's all any Christian is really doing at the end of the day. Who's actually seeking out these things. I mean, even if we're talking about death there in Hades and Sheol, I mean, when Christ died, he went down to a place where he preached to the dead. That's not hell. Like, he went down with the keys to death, you know, to hell, and he there was a resurrection with his resurrection. People
Right,
started
right, right,
raising
right.
from the dead, you know, because he
Yeah,
went down there and he got them. Abraham's bosom, I think, is referring to, you know, these the people of the past with the promise that they would
they were
be
in the upper
resurrected.
levels of the afterlife, which were in
Yeah,
a good
yeah,
place.
but that's. But
Precisely.
I believe he then preached to everybody else and says, "You'll get your chance. Don't worry, I'm coming back for you. For now, it's their time." I think
Right.
that's basically what
Yeah.
was going on. And it says in
Yeah.
Revelations 20, after the 1,000 year reign has ended, the rest of the dead rise again, are
And
resurrected,
there's just some
you know.
weird stuff with that, with the like some of these places in France where they would have these elaborate water fountains, and very obvious that they could move water around,
Hmm.
but then they wouldn't have a toilet, and
Oh, yeah.
then they have these giant doors where there's some giant people that didn't have to go to the bathroom, that were actually already in their glorious bodies
Hmm.
living in these places. That's a good
See,
question too. I don't know.
it seems that way. It seems
It's
like
possible. I don't know.
it's possible. Again, a lot of this
I guess they
is.
just went out to the outhouse, man. They had a little out shack outhouse, and then they had these elaborate water
But this
fountains
is what I
everywhere.
mean. Yeah, I've heard that argument that have you not heard of outhouses? Have you not heard of buckets under the bed and all this type of thing? But you look at the opulence of like the Palace of Versailles, and you're
Right,
like,
yeah.
these people who had intricate aqueduct water systems to power fountains would not have missed an opportunity to put a hole in the ground with a flush system, a very basic
Yeah,
flush
no
system.
kidding,
You
dude.
know, like they would
I,
have included that if it was necessary, and it is
if it
necessary,
was the
right?
case, we should have water fountains everywhere around here, because I don't have any around me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just got a toilet.
Well, the thing is, you look at a cistern, a water cistern, it's like the most
Right.
simplest mechanism ever. It's not complex compared to the architecture these people were
Oh
designing. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
You're you're
exactly.
you're an engineer, you know, right? A water
Right.
cistern is very simple. It's just gravity
Yeah.
working at its most basic level. So it boggles the mind. And clearly, whoever was, I mean, you hear that phrase in the Bible, you know, my father has many mansions and it's preparing a place for you. And then you look at these buildings of this time, which we are equating to Millennial Kingdom buildings in this theory, and they're like multi-windowed, thousand-roomed buildings. You know, they have many
Oh
rooms,
yeah,
and it's
dude. They got
like,
like some of them are like 1,000 rooms in them.
yeah,
Like,
it's like
seriously?
these communal living places, clearly, where they were all. I don't know. Were they even sleeping during this time? Was it even necessary to sleep if in that time? Because you had the resurrected saints, which would have been perfected, and the second death has no power on them. There is no more resurrection for them. They'll be there at the great white throne judgment, already judged and ready to go. There's nothing wrong with those guys, but they would have had this superhuman ability. Probably they could have maybe been flying around for all we know, like in the ninth dimension perception
Some
of.
are some are saying they're like in the North Pole or something. I heard some weird
Yeah.
theory like that. I don't know about that, but like they all went to the North Pole and they're wwaiting for us, then and that's where Santa Claus, Santa Claus is North Pole.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've speculated on that myself. Yeah,
did
it
you hear
does.
about this China with the Boxer Rebellion and stuff? Did you see this video?
No, no, no. Fill me in.
So of course they tell us this is what Genghis Khan looked like, but
Mm.
they're actually saying Marco Polo actually wrote something quite different. I
Oh,
don't even know.
he had red hair, and
Yeah, he
he
had
was
like
pale
a
skin.
like
Yeah.
a it looked like someone from Europe, and he had these very elaborate, apparently, and I just have this one window open. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, here we go. They look like this.
Hmm.
They look like just normal. You wouldn't expect this in China, right? And of
No.
course, according to Marco Polo's writings, one of the most beautiful cities was in, I think it was in China as well. And he even shows in some of these paintings. He got ads. He got it.
Yeah.
Even in some of these old paintings, they will actually show like some of this beautiful city in the background. Apparently, like some city that was like built with a huge, massive moat around it, and it was just like the most insane. Like it had 1,000 bridges or something. I can't remember exactly what all he said, but supposedly this was the most beautiful city ever, and it was in China. And like you said, we had all this World War I, World War II, World War III, or not World War III, but we have the Boxer Rebellion. Apparently, he says this was the original real World War I because apparently a number of countries got involved. And from what he was saying in this video, basically the idea is that this was sort of like the descendants of sort of a Tatarian kingdom. Like it wasn't the actual original Tatarian kingdom because it got overthrown in like 1600 AD, but
Hmm.
it had the same sort of structure, and maybe it was like the last remnants of it, and they had to get rid of it because it was proof or evidence of something. So that's the Boxer Rebellion. They wrote it as if it was a bunch of kung fu fighters trying to, take over, farmers trying to take over the kingdom or something. But
Mm.
according to what this guy is saying, perhaps it was actually the First World War where they were trying to destroy the last remnants of a Tatarian empire. And
Hmm.
then, even though it wasn't actually a Tatarian empire, it was like sort of the stepchild of one. You know what I mean? It's kind
Hmm.
of not the exact right thing, but um, so it's kind of interesting. Maybe I can hit refresh. I don't know if it'll get rid of this ad. There we go. Uh, so, like, these are pictures from Marco Polo's book saying that he looked like this.
Mm.
Does this look like Genghis Khan to you? I mean, come on, really? This is the kind of stuff Marco Polo apparently had as a drawing from Genghis Khan. It's just kind of strange.
Hmm.
And so I don't know. I have to look into this. I think this was the city that was drawn. Uh, let me see. Let me look at the closed caption. He said something about how big it was. Okay, show transcript. Um, 10,000 bridges. Maybe I don't know if you can hear it. It says 10,000 bridges right here. Now, a lot of historians just flat out reject it, say this is not possible, impossible. This is just, so this is what I was trying to say earlier is how modern day historians, what they'll do is they'll reference Tacitus, Pliny, all these guys, but they'll cherry pick, and anything that doesn't sound like they think would be realistic, they just say no, that's impossible,
Hmm.
and then they just revise it and don't tell you about it. Because like if you look at Marco Polo, he talked about dragons in, I think he's the one that said something about dragons in India or something. Wasn't he
Hmm.
the guy? So like, I mean, there's like books from the 1600s and 1500s written by the Spanish conquistadors and saying, or by, writers that were going along with them, that there were like these giant human skulls and like that they could stick their sword in all through the eye socket all the way and stuff. And but the Vatican had them destroy everything, kind of
Hmm.
like what we see with these Tatarian buildings getting carpet bombed, like you were saying. It's really interesting. Like it's like all the evidence, just destroy it. So like if the devil did get out of the bottomless pit, what he's going to do? Destroy all the evidence
Hmm.
of him being there and just completely make people believe whatever, even not even know if they're a man or something. Like just make you so you don't have a clue where you're at,
Hmm.
right?
It's funny.
So,
It's funny because that what you're showing me there looked pretty much like Amsterdam as well, which
oh,
again
okay.
is a beautiful city full of like Tartarian antiquitech type looking cathedrals and architecture. With many bridges. Amsterdam is actually underwater technically. It's below
That's a
sea
star
level.
fort too. That's like a massive star fort. He said it's like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
biggest he ever saw. So this was in Quinn, China,
yeah.
and it was a star fort, and it was according to Marco Polo, it was the biggest and most beautiful ever in the world that he had ever seen in his travels.
Mm.
And apparently, Marco Polo might have been, according to some of the drawings, he could have been himself part of Titiria. They make it sound like he's something different in the history books now, but yeah, there's all these star forts. Where are they from? What are all
Mm.
these? And there's also an African map. I have a map of Africa that shows like castles and stuff in it as well. Where is that at? Here we go.
Mm.
Uh, this is in Africa, and it's showing like magnificent castles and stuff everywhere. You don't see this in Africa today. They probably just destroyed them all. I don't know.
Mm.
Uh,
It's the same for
so it's
northern
like
side.
everywhere. It's everywhere.
Same for if you can maybe look for old maps of northern Siberia, similar maps like this. Type in Siberia old map or something like that,
Oh
and you'll
yeah.
find they're also covered in these castles, cities all over the place. In this place. Yeah, like just look at any of these, for example, and you can
Okay.
see it was heavily populated at one point. With cities all over the place documented during this time, and it'll even say Tartary in the corner of some of these maps.
Really? Yeah. Let's see if
uh,
it shows a picture. Oh, this doesn't show anything. This just shows mountains or
That's
something.
the top end of Russia, next to Alaska. Alaska's to the right there.
Okay.
But yeah, no, like I said, it shows it was heavily populated anyway. There was civilizations there. There was names, towns, cities, roads, all sorts of things on these old maps.
1875.
But if you go
Maybe
look
I
at,
need a specific. These are like 1800s,
I'm
1900s
not
stuff.
sure. I've just seen the maps.
No, no,
It's
no. I believe. I actually. I honestly.
Yeah.
I don't have a hard time believing you. You
They
know.
look just like those African ones you were saying. Like I've seen, and again, it shows that this northern territory of Russia used to be populated. Even that shows it was populated with many things. If you go look at it now on Google Earth, it's decimated. There's nothing there. It's
Oh yeah.
completely. It's been bombed. There's just craters, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of miles of craters, and water filled craters now. You know what I mean? Just absolutely destroyed, and it looks like a nuclear war has happened up there. It just looks decimated, and none of these civilizations you saw on that old map, even there that was documented, exist anymore. They don't exist. They've been removed, and you have to wonder we don't have any historical narrative to explain why it looks the way it does and why those things don't exist anymore. It's just not mentioned. We just don't know. We don't know. I think someone said maybe like a Carrington event or something, a solar flare is a
Oh yeah. We're
you
talking
know
about like what Noel was saying is something about fervent heat and things being melted, and then of course you
mm,
have the I forgot the word where the land essentially becomes loose and
liquefaction.
liquefaction. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, but
Liquefaction.
people have tried to argue that maybe a lot of these places were destroyed
Oh
prior
yeah.
by Christ when he did come back, bringing his
Oh
sword and
maybe.
bringing a flame in fire. It was trial by fire essentially, and a lot of these melted cities we see are actually a result of tribulation and judgment.
Right.
These were actually very corrupt places prior to his establishing his own kingdom. A lot of these Tartarian buildings, which are now just melted landscapes, it's because
Right.
it's because of tribulation. We're seeing signs that tribulation has actually come and passed by seeing these swaths of just destroyed places. I mean, even then, it even says in Micah, I think it is the book of Micah, and Zechariah, is it? It begins with Z. I might be saying that wrong, but it explains what you have to do during the millennial reign when Christ comes. That he'll establish a kingdom, and there will be a pilgrimage, a highway created to Mount Zion, and every year people have to make the travel to his holy mountain. And if they don't, these nations who refuse to make the pilgrimage, then they get drought. That's what it says. There'll be no rain. And we have
Really.
large swaths of the earth. If you look at a map of deserts, just type in deserts on earth map, and
Oh yeah.
it'll just highlight where these patches are. And you look at them, and there's like no rhyme or reason to them. And you could say, oh well, they're along the equator where it's the hottest and the sun is, but
Right.
when you actually look at the map, you kind of like that doesn't explain why this section is desert or why this section is desert or why that section is desert necessarily. You know what I mean? It seems quite wild. And you have to wonder, is that place a complete barren, dry wasteland because they were the nations who were still in rebellion during his reign? You know, you have to.
Well, it makes sense with Saudi Arabia or a lot of these countries that are Muslim because they were
Mm,
fighting against it. They were fighting against the Millennial Kingdom if it was the Millennial Kingdom, and they are pretty much all deserts. So
mm.
it makes perfect sense in that respect.
It's not
I
even that
mean,
as well. It's like the Australia, for example. It's pretty much 95% desert, you know. And you know, I've done some studies into Australian culture, and it's ancient, it's old. It's like there's been no interruption to their oral tradition whatsoever. And you have to wonder, is that because they were a nation that refused to follow the millennial reign when it happened, and they just remained a barren, dry wasteland? As maybe they were luscious to begin with. And you look at the history of their gods, and it's the rainbow serpent,
oh,
who had
okay,
the one genus serpent human hybrid offspring, the Nephilim, you know, and
yeah.
then and they were the rain bringers. It says they're the ones they can thank for any water they got whatsoever, you know, and it's kind of, and they lived in this weird dreamland state, the dreaming they call it, where they were taking these drugs and interacting with spirit beings all the time,
Oh,
and
okay.
you have to
This seems to
understand,
be very common among a lot of different tribal areas is they'll
yeah,
have a
yeah,
certain and they'll have take certain things to like have spiritual experiences or whatever.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I have to wonder with in retrospect to this new theory, this Millennial Kingdom theory, it's like, did they maintain the worship of their old gods even during the time of the Millennial Reign, which is why that land is dry and barren? Again, I'm not trying to
Maybe.
disparage entire cultures here. I'm just
Yeah, I don't know.
speculating based on this theory, but who knows, you know?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, there is evidence also of Teterios in America.
Hmm.
There's some art. I had some pictures of that. Where did I go? Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. If you look at this picture, oh, I didn't even have share on. Let me see if I can share it. Yeah, so this one shows the yellow is where Teteria is,
Mm.
and the yellow goes into America.
Mm.
So, and then of course we had lots of buildings, I believe, here before the settlers came, and of course they destroyed them, the World Fairs and things like that. I'm sure you've
Hmm.
covered that. But there's also really just so. Have you ever seen that channel, My Lunch Break?
I've seen a few videos of his. I've heard
He
of
has
him
some
though.
funny videos where like he's like they say this was built by some monks in a church and it's like a little ancient like looks like some ancient Egyptian temple and they're
Hmm.
like saying some Catholic church guys built. I'm like, really? I
Hmm.
mean, seriously? Just like they have to make a story behind everything that's around, in America because it's Wikipedia or whatever.
Hmm.
And some of the stories are just absolutely ridiculous. Like, Harford's and Sons built this building. It's got 10,000 or 1,000 rooms and not 10,000, 1,000 rooms in it. In 1 year. Yeah, okay. I believe that with horse and buggy. Makes perfect sense.
It's like the Crystal Palace, isn't it? You know, someone built this
Yeah,
amazing
right.
metal glass structure, which was enormous. And then what did they do? They completely dismantled it and moved it somewhere else. And then it burnt down, and then they rebuilt it. And it's kind of, come on, give us a break. I mean, I was just actually talking in just editing a video, like I mentioned earlier, and it was talking about Moorish revival architecture in America. So we're talking Spanish Islamic architecture in the heart of America, you know, which a place it just should not belong. And they have this story that, yeah, the Shriners built all of these for their shrines, you know, the offshoot of Freemasonry, because they're an Islamic themed offshoot.
Shriners.
The Shriners, yeah, you know, the
Right.
level of Freemasonry, the Islamic
How long have
themed
they even
cult.
been around?
But
They've
this is what
been,
I mean. Not that long. I mean, the story of the Shriners is from like the mid 1800s, like mid to late 1800s, and
and that
apparently,
makes perfect sense.
yeah,
1800 sounds about
apparently
right.
the guy who created it was a Freemason who went to a French party that had an
Uh,
Arabic theme, and he's like, "Oh,
really.
he's like, I really dig this theme. I'm going to start an entire." And this is the story. This is the official story. He says, "I'm
Oh,
going to
come on.
start an entire faction offshoot of Freemasonry called the Shriners, based on Arabian iconography, because of this party I went to in France." Right,
I,
and
I have a hard time believing that one.
I know, right?
With
And then
with those hats that are dipped in
yeah,
blood. Yeah,
but
okay, that makes
they
perfect
took
sense.
ownership and control over all of these beautiful buildings in America, which have this Moorish Islamic theme with
Oh,
the
okay.
onion domes on the top and these arabesque patterns, and inside they're insane, so colorful, so intricate architectural archways and repeat patterns, very psychedelic in nature, you know. And it's kind of like, and you're telling me a bunch of Freemasons just decided to make all of these beautiful buildings
Yeah,
based on,
right.
you know, it's kind of, but you have to wonder, like, Freemasonry is in the name. were these just the people who moved into what was left behind after the Millennial reign? It was free masonry, and they just took it. You
Yeah,
know,
Freemasonry.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
I
again,
think they just what is it? What is the word? My lunch break use. He says uh they founded the building, right?
yeah,
Or they
yeah,
found it. They
esta-
found it. They found the
established. You
building. That's why they founded
know,
it. They found it. They didn't build it. They just found it, right? And I
exactly.
declared it as mine because I have money to declare it as mine with the government that's currently in this area,
Yeah, but
right?
but like I said, you need the story for everything. So it's kind of like, so how do we explain in American history all of this Islamic buildings everywhere, these temples? Well, let's just invent the Shriners and say they built them for
You know
the,
about
you
the
know,
with the Grand Canyon, how they had Egyptian treasure in it, and of course the Indians in that area apparently are descendants of ancient Egypt because if you look at their calligraphy and everything, so it's kind of I did videos on the American Indians. There's like a bunch of different tribes that came from like ancient Babylon and other places, but I think Sigmund Freud's another example. What you're talking about with the 1800s is that he
mm,
seemed to come out of nowhere. And I liked what you're talking about with regards to the insane asylums. It made perfect sense. These people are not stopping to talk about this topic. What are these buildings? Why are they still here? They're maybe a little too religious, right?
mm.
They believe there's a millennial kingdom. It makes perfect sense because then you had all these orphans and stuff. That makes perfect sense to me. That line of thinking that perhaps a lot of these orphans are the offspring of these people that were in these insane asylums, right?
Yeah, well,
Because they were
it's
too
possible.
religious,
It's possible
too
people,
religious.
yeah, it's possible people lived during the millennial reign who weren't perfected saints, just people who survived tribulation. But they lived through, the millennial reign, and they lived a long time. Their life was extended by virtue of being in that beautiful kingdom with the waters of life everywhere, rivers of running life waters and healing frequencies in cathedrals, and they probably lived a lot longer than the average human and had children and lived normal human lives, but just a lot longer. And when the little season came and the millennial reign ended, a lot of them probably remained here. They didn't get to go with the camp of with the saints to wherever Jesus went. We can argue where that is, but they're not in the camp of saints. They remain. So it's possible. When the little season
So you're saying
started.
like they're believers, but they're not the glorified or whatever?
No,
Is
they're
that
not
what
the
you're saying?
glorified people. They're just
Right.
humans
They're
who
not
lived,
glorified.
who
Yeah.
populated that time. And
Right.
they couldn't go with Christ when he
Right. Right.
left.
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
think only you have to be in a perfected state to have access
And that
to
makes sense
that
because
city.
the religion was so strong from even it kind of flowed still and it kind of went downhill from the 1500s till now to where now like
Mm.
like it was going on around you,
Well,
right?
you had the
Uh,
Enlightenment, didn't you?
right, right. That's
And
another thing. Yeah, we went from the dark ages to the Enlightenment, right? Yeah,
mhm.
scientific revolution and all that. Which actually, in reality, now we just have Walmart and Slurpees. We don't have like these beautiful buildings and stuff. We're just all
No,
fat and out of shape and don't even know who we are.
no, it's
We're enlightened, all right.
it's all utilitarian now. It's how useful is it? Is corrugated iron quickly cheaply made, rather than taking the time to make these beautiful intricate buildings that last, like they used to have the time to do, which we see evidences for.
Well, I mean, just think about it. Like the only type of people that could do that today is someone who really wants to, and they'd have to be extremely wealthy,
Oh
probably a
yeah.
billionaire. So how does it almost every building was like that back then? It would obviously have to be something almost impossible to do unless you had some sort of special kingdom, it would seem.
Hmm.
Because how could you have so many buildings like that, right? I mean, unless everybody's a billionaire and everybody had time. I mean, it's like that's not the case. Someone's got
No,
to be poor, someone's got to be working, right? And
that's not the history we were
unless
told. We were told it's nothing but feudal horse and carriage societies
right,
at war with each other
all
constantly.
they couldn't read and
Illiterate like
but they
mud.
can build these awesome buildings.
Exactly.
Harford and Sons built it, and we can't build anything today, though.
Yeah, I thought it was
So
interesting because I was talking with the hijacker who is the host on Revolution Radio, and he shared with me and he came at it from like a political standpoint. He said, "What would the kingdom actually have been like from a socio-political interaction?" And he tried to explain how when Christ came and established his kingdom, he built the infrastructure that we live in today because he knew when he had to leave, we wouldn't make it otherwise. He had to build the world for us, lay the foundations of the cities, build the buildings, the roads, the aqueducts, the pipe systems, everything. He had to build it for us because he knew with the help of his perfected saints and the people helping him with these abilities, obviously, and teaching us how to do these things, because he knew once his season's over, if you don't have this infrastructure in place, you've got no chance. Like Satan will just send you straight back to horse and carriage and no knowledge of literacy. But now we live in a
Right.
world where you can know Christ, and it's been hard work, I think, for Satan to cover up everything. It's taken him a long
Yeah.
time, hundreds of years, in fact, to try and get us going backwards, and he's not been able to do it. So we live in an information age, and we're actually blessed in a
But
way
this
that
is,
we
in a
can know,
sense, though, the information age makes it easier for them, though, to delete stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I've noticed is especially some of these bigger truths that I've found are very difficult to find anything on the internet. Usually you
Mm,
have to go back to the Encyclopedia Britannica or some older books or something.
yeah.
There might be like one or two things you'll find online. It's just really crazy. Like that Pope Sixtus, that one video, it's got 13
Hmm.
subscribers, and he references like 50 books,
Hmm.
books you can't even read now probably on the internet very easily unless you
Yeah.
like, look them up, right?
But we do have to go back to, like you said, basic ink on paper books to really get any truth now. It's kind
It's
of,
weird, man. It's so
yeah.
weird. Even with the Bible, like a lot of these modern commentaries and stuff, like if you go to the older ones, they seem to be better. Like I've noticed with the old Strong's Concordance was less biased and had people's interpretation in it.
Hmm.
The older commentaries, even if they're from the 1800s or whatever, they seem to be far better than modern day. And I've noticed that with a lot of verses. Like there's verses that are just straight up mistranslated. Like, did you hear about Jonah? He's not. It was actually. It says in the text, Cetus. It's a mythological creature that swallowed Jonah, not a whale.
Hmm.
And it's just like Leviathan, Behemoth. Like, oh, it's just an alligator or a hippopotamus. Give me a break, dude. Hippopotamus has a tail like a cedar, really? Wow,
Hmm.
didn't know that. They can walk through rivers and lakes. I don't think so. They can't walk through rivers and lakes. They might float through it if they're lucky, I guess. I don't know.
Hmm.
But I mean, obviously, there were probably dinosaurs, right? So you have all these stories. And of course, like Bel and the Dragon, which is one of the chapters in Daniel that was removed. And it even tells how he killed the dragon with feeding him something that ended up killing him, I guess. But yeah, so you have all these stories. And then if you look in the older history books, they talk about giants, they talk about dragons.
Hmm.
But today it's like, oh, you're crazy. It's evolution. We know billions of years ago, all this stuff. And
Hmm.
it's so funny when you look at like you send this pictures of the pterodactyl. Have you seen that? Pterodactyl Civil War. Have you ever seen these? There's like multiple pictures of pterodactyls being hunted in the Civil War. And there's like several pictures. There's like lots actually. And these have been around for a long time. So I don't think AI made them. I've seen some of these even like 5, 10 years ago, like this one here. I've seen this for a long time, but it's just funny. Like if you go look up on Google, when did the pterodactyl live, right? Uh, oh, whoops. This is going to my website instead. When did the I can't spell pterodactyl live? Okay. It'll tell you 201 million years ago, but then they have pictures of them in the Civil War, right? Like, seriously?
You
You
look at
know,
those, you look at those though, and you do think, now my mind goes straight to AI because I see stuff like that being created by AI. But I
but
also,
I've seen it 10 years ago, this
this
one.
this
This
is
one I
what I
saw
mean.
10
I,
years
I
ago.
believe you as well that
So,
the lines are blurred so much now that I believe
oh
you
yeah,
that
you
these
can
have
make
been
anything
around.
now. You
Yeah.
can make I've been using Mid-Journey to make some of my thumbnails, and I made some that look real, almost real, and there's
Hmm.
even like Sora AI now that you can make almost realistic looking video movies. So I mean, yeah, you could explain away anything, but honestly, I think these are probably real pterodactyl pictures. And there's actually other birds too that were caught like in Canada and stuff.
Hmm.
There weren't pterodactyls, like this one here. This is in Canada. I don't know what the heck that is. It's not a pterodactyl, it's some other bird. Maybe it's a pterodactyl. I guess it could be a pterodactyl. I don't know what it is. But there's all these really huge birds, and I mean, it's just really strange. It's like so they tell us this hundreds of millions of years ago, all this stuff happened, and
Hmm.
that was from Charles Darwin, who was also, I think he was also funded by the Rockefeller, wasn't he? I think he was. All these guys from the 1800s
Hmm.
funded. What's his name? Sigmund Freud, and he was trying to get rid of religion and stuff. What was I had a quote over here? What was it? Oh yeah, here we are. Described in several books and essays, Freud considered God a fantasy based on infantile need for a dominant father figure with religion as a necessity in the development of early civilization to help restrain our violent impulses that now can now be discarded in favor of science and reason. So now you should just trust the science, folks.
Yeah, that's where
Trust
it
the
began.
science.
But this is the point. Like at the end of the millennial reign, there would have been a lot of people who still remembered Christ, and would not have been
Right, right, right.
for the
So
little,
they
and they
gotta
would,
they gotta
yeah.
brainwash you out of it, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
Well,
is
a
crazy.
lot of them were probably just locked up in insane asylums, and their children were orphaned and just sent all over America or the
I wonder
world.
if they did
You
experiments
know,
on them too.
probably. Yeah, who knows
I mean,
what?
it would make sense. Like, wouldn't it?
Well, they were
Wouldn't it make
performing
sense?
lobotomies left, right, and center. They were
Yeah, they're doing crazy stuff, man.
experimenting with new surgeries and all these type of things during this
What
time. You
will
know what I
happen if I
mean?
do this?
Well, yeah,
It's like
yeah, absolutely. It was a show. The surgery then was just a mess. You know, they were just seeing what stuck, basically cutting people open and just seeing what happened. And why not experiment on these people? Why not? I mean, these were people as well. Don't forget that would have had an extended life who were still around. So maybe they were messing with that and seeing how far they could push it and just experimenting with it. You know, and I think someone showed an image of from like medieval period of like tribes cutting people up, but the people were still alive. Like, and it's kind of like because they could take it, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like weird
this
things
sounds
like
like
that,
these
you
weird
know.
experiments in World War II and stuff, just like, and then of course they brought them these scientists over here, right? Like, oh, we need them over here now to do some more stuff, right?
That's it.
But like this guy was from the 1800s as well. I did a video about circumcision. Did you hear that essentially modern day circumcision is not the same as what was in the Bible?
No,
Yeah,
I'm
and
aware
of
of
course
this.
in
Yeah.
America they did. And I don't know, UK is I think different than America, but in America it's still predominantly done here, I think.
Yeah,
Unlike
it's not done in the UK by a standard. It's just not a thing. It's just
right.
unless you have a serious medical reason,
Oh yeah, yeah,
they're
it
not
makes
going to
sense.
do it. They just it just doesn't
Right.
happen. Yeah,
But
yeah.
see, it's actually called the Pharisaical circumcision, is the type we do here in America, which was created in 144 AD. And before that, it was just they cut the tip off. Now they cut the entire thing off.
Hmm.
And he's the guy that got it to happen. And this is the guy who made Kellogg's cornflakes. He claimed, now they try to paint him as if he was a Christian, but he wasn't. If you go look up his Wikipedia, he didn't even believe in Jesus as being resurrected or anything. He claimed to be a Seventh Day Adventist, but then he has in this dinner party, he has all these very rich guys all around him, like Rocca type of feller type dudes. And I think he was probably funded also to push this type of anti-sex stuff and just, and in a sense, you think of trauma-based, mind, of course, control, right? So if you
Hmm.
put a trauma on a person and then you also program them to think a certain way, it's like a light version, but it kind of made me wonder about it. Like, is that really what that might have been? Because of course, you look in America, there's a lot of weird stuff with regards to that, and it caused this cultural division in America where you have people who are very, uh, anything goes, do whatever you want, and then you have these people that are very much like, oh, don't do anything, don't even kiss before marriage, all this kind of stuff. So you have like this very huge dichotomy, and then it kind of flips people back and forth from the two sides because they get sick of one and go to the other. And I think this is like something the devil designed as well. This is kind of one of my theories
Hmm.
that in reality, I don't think God is like this ridiculous, have billions of rules and just make everything crazy like that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I think this was kind of set up too. I think there's like a lot of stuff that was set up in the 1800s to kind of throw off all of society and get it all screwed up. And I think that was just yet another example, kind of like Sigmund Freud and all the other stuff.
Hmm.
But that's just one of my theories.
Oh, it was during that same time period we had the expansionist of the British Empire as well, you know, and the reestablishment of a new kingdom or attempts of a new kingdom. That was the happening time period, you know. The 1800s was wild, like the mid 1700s to like the mid 1800s, big power shifts, big advancements in technology, industrialization, all sorts of things was going on in that time period, you know, and you can say it was due to the brilliant engineering and sciences and the coming out of the Enlightenment of the 16th century and these type of things. But I don't know. I look back at
I feel
these.
like it's a power structure was being built
Oh
and they
yeah.
were like trying to control, of course,
Well,
everything.
I
Yeah.
I believe that is the New World Order. They were building a new world order after Christ's world order. That's what New
Right.
World Order means. It's and I think it's built. I think they've done it. I don't think we're waiting for them to establish a New World Order. I
Oh no,
think
they've
I think we
yeah,
need to understand. No, the New World Order began in I don't know. Let's say 1776, shall we? I don't.
well, we had the dollar bill. It says right on it. Like, when did they change the dollar bill? I think it was around 18 something or whatever, 1801 or something like that. They changed the dollar bill to have that on the back with the
Hmm.
pyramid and everything.
Yeah.
that came in a little bit later, but maybe they already established stuff even before they put it on the dollar bill, right?
It
So I
depends
don't know.
when you want to actually say the millennial reign
Yeah.
ended, and did it actually end in like the mid 1500s?
Yeah,
You
that's
know.
the one I was wondering about 15 to 1800s if something happened there too. I've heard some weird stuff about that with
Hmm.
the maps or some of the maps don't look right. Like there's like some 1800 maps and 1500 maps, so there's like stuff swapped around and
Hmm.
doesn't look right and stuff. I don't know, man, about that. I don't know. But there is that J and I thing, the J before the number and the
Hmm.
I are like, Jesus, Jesus, in the
It's
year of our
it's
Lord.
that is
Type-
really complicated to look into because
Yeah,
yeah, there's evidences to show on buildings that yes, okay, so they used to put J's and I's in front of numbers, and we've
yeah,
reinterpreted them today to mean ones. So when it says J 653,
yeah. Right, right,
we
right.
assumed that meant 1653.
You can
The
see it on coins too. You can see where
yeah,
they
yeah,
started changing it from the I to a one, and you
yeah,
can like see even like an evolution of it. Like it'll start out like looking like a straight I, and then it'll cut off like one edge of it, and then it'll cut off the other edge, and it starts to like turn into a one.
yeah, yeah. It's
So there was, I think it was the 1800s when they started doing that,
Yeah,
when they
yeah,
started
it's like
swapping.
they started making coins in the same style as these older ones, but printing them with a one instead to try and catch up, and as though, oh, those coins have always been around. We've been using them for ages, when they're actually like 300 years old from the time
Right.
of when Jesus or Jesus, Isis, the Latinized Greek name of Jesus, was printed on the money, perhaps on real gold and
Yeah, there's
silver
some
as
coins
well.
with him on it too. You're right. There's
Yeah, yeah.
coins with him on it.
That's
Did you
yeah.
do a video about that or something?
Well, no, I've just seen it's just part of the research. I've seen it all, and
Yeah.
I've mentioned it many times. Could the J and the I be a reference to? It's actually the year 553 of our Lord Jesus Christ. That's what the coin actually meant. You know what I mean of
Right.
his reign. And
Right.
there's an example of build. I'm not. It's an archway somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I've seen the image thousands of times. You may have seen it, but it's got Roman numerals and it says like DDXCIII or something like that.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then it shows it today, and they've added an M in front of it all that wasn't there previously, and that's
There's one right there
yeah, and
like
that's
that.
1,000 years. They've added 1,000 years to it, literally.
Yeah, this is in Minnesota. This is just a Minneapolis, Minnesota City Hall,
Hmm.
and apparently it had stones. Some of the stones are 40,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, how did they? And it's all stone. It's like pure stone. It's not like just some outlay stone on the outside. It's pure stone. This
Hmm.
whole entire building, like this thing could sit here 1,000 years,
Yeah.
easy. And how did they bring a 40,000 pound stone in with a horse and buggy? How did they do that?
Hmm.
And that's like, what are you? And like all the other ones are average 8,000 pounds, like 8,000 pound stones. There's nobody carrying around 8,000 pound stones or 40,000 pound stones. Someone, whoever built that, maybe that's been around for 1,000 years. We don't even know. They put windows in it, of course, now,
Hmm.
and whatever they had in it before. And like you said, I was thinking about these coins. Like, what if when he came and established a kingdom, he minted the coins then, and maybe he didn't mint any more for 1,000 years. And then at the end of it, they're like, "Oh, we got to make this I into a one because then it'll look right," or so. I don't know. There's a lot of ways you could look at it. It's hard to say. But
Hmm.
there's clearly something going on there with the I and J. I think there is something. And yeah, they can just add numbers. I've seen one where they had a World Fair, and it said, I'm trying to remember how it was. It was something like they said they built this, and it was on my lunch break. He was showing it in his where it showed a date. They said they built it, but then it actually showed on the building 100 years earlier,
Hmm.
and there was like 5 different places on the building where it said the number. And you could see they were painting it. It was so obvious because it looked like there was like sort of mud all around the building, which doesn't look right for one. And then the building's all white now. I'm like, so they literally, I think all these teams that they called the construction people were actually just going around painting these buildings white.
Hmm.
Hartford and Sons, 3 guys painted the building white. Oh, they built the thing in a year. And yeah,
Yeah.
right. They didn't build that building,
I
you
mean,
know?
I know, but even the whole World Fair thing is ridiculous. Like, oh yeah, they were just cheaply made of like plasterboard and wooden frames, and
Really?
they were built in like 3 years, and then we destroyed it all after the World's Fair. It was just a bit of fun to showcase, come
Like this
come
building
to
here,
us.
this is one they destroyed, like you're saying. There's
Yeah,
no way, even if you made it out of plasterboard, it wouldn't even stand.
no.
It would. I'm an engineer. I actually took architectural design as well when I was in high school. I took college credits in high school for architectural design, but then after I went and became an engineer. But I mean, this building is just absolutely ridiculous. There's no way. that this is made out of, what you're saying, plasterboard or something.
I
And
don't know. I don't know what they were made of. It was just like it
I
was
know, I know, I agree with
it
you.
was all
It's ridiculous.
facades. It was all just a facade. Really, behind the scenes, it was just hollow and empty. It wasn't really made of stone and all these type of things or bricks. But this is a
Well, this
solid
one obviously
structure.
is not. This one's kind of different here, but I mean, it's clearly on the outside brick, but on the inside it has some sort of difference. Like it's got something different going on in the inside. I don't
Yeah,
know what's going on there.
it's some kind of
Some sort.
metal frame or something, isn't it? I
Yeah,
don't know. Yeah.
something. But clearly, there's no way they. I mean, look how there's supposedly it could hold 300,000 people, which is like very, very. It's
Hmm.
like as big as the biggest things in the world now can barely do that.
Yeah.
And like, how do you build that with horse and buggy? There's no way. I can't see it. They probably did have metal during that kingdom time, but I mean,
Hmm.
they probably built most things out of stone. Maybe there was some stuff they put metal, or I don't know how it worked, but
Well, mankind's been taught how to use metal
I don't
since the
know.
fallen angels decided to teach us metallurgy,
Yeah,
so it's not like we don't understand how metal works. I think the stone is more permanent, isn't it? I think that's why stone seems to have been the main thing of choice. Red brick in particular, and
yeah.
I think what
Oh,
isn't
red brick, right? Yeah,
yeah.
the red brick can hold a charge, right?
It
You've
can hold a
seen that?
charge, yeah. And I
Yeah.
said a lot. It seems like a lot of these buildings weren't just functional as places for people to sleep or something. It's like they had
Oh
many
no,
purposes. They harnessed energy from the looks of it, literal etheric power straight from the air, and probably were lit up. Probably looked insane. Probably glowed with the going through all the geometry within them was the routes for the energies to flow through naturally, and then probably power the entire 50-mile region, you know what I mean,
what
within
if
an
he
area.
powered it? What if he doesn't it say in Revelation that he's the source of light?
Yes. Well, that's the
Perhaps he was his energy was actually flowing into all these buildings and these weird cemeteries and stuff. I
I
don't know. It's
think
kind of
so.
crazy to think of.
I think so. I think that's actually what happened. I think something like that. And when he left, that power left. And now these buildings are essentially like duds. They're like remnants, dead batteries in a sense. You know what I mean? They're just empty shells now of what they used to be.
That's
And
crazy, man.
when you think about it, because they don't do that, they don't harness that energy anymore.
Perhaps they had some machine in the like some
Maybe.
people talk about these machines in like certain areas where they would sort of harness and maybe store it,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever
Well,
this energy was.
these look at the language. Like a cathedral, they say, is a cathode, a thing that can take ionized particles and like energy and store it basically, or transmute it and change it places. And they say that the water would be charged as well, and all these type of things by these cathedrals. And you drink the water. And I've heard loads of theories of what these purposes behind
It's
these
hard to say,
buildings.
man. It's really hard to know.
It's
It's kind of cool.
fascinating though. I mean, there's a large contingent of researchers on this topic who aren't Christian, mainly coming at it from maybe a Gnostic view or just even just a secular view, just a historical view. Who they would call it Antiquitech, and they're very much on the
Right,
on the Tartarian civilization perspective, an ancient hidden civilization of advanced humans, but they don't talk about the
right,
millennial reign like we're talking about today.
right, right, right.
Because they don't probably don't even know about this, to be honest, or this perspective. But it would make it, I think the Millennial Kingdom makes sense of it perfectly. All this Tartarian talk as well. I think this is actually your answer. This is what was really going on. This is
But it's so hard to know, man, because it's like
mm,
you have to somehow deny some of history but then again, if you go back to these older history books like Marco Polo's there, it shows Genghis Khan looked completely different. Khan meant king or something, from what I understand. So it's just really strange. It's like you have to go if you start going back to some of these older books, you get a better understanding of what really did happen in the
mhm.
past, and not read these modern day books, which basically, from what I can tell, just cherry pick whatever they want
Mhm.
and tell you what they want you to believe.
Well, we
You know,
already know, don't we, that history's a lie. I mean, even before we knew anything about these topics, as conspiracy
right?
theorists, I've always known they've been lying to us from day one about a lot of things. I mean, why is this?
So
Why is
you were
this?
always that way. Were you always that way? Even how were you, I mean, even before you're a believer, you were like that, or what?
Not necessarily. No, no, no. It took some
Okay.
learning to do. It's to
Was it the
deprogram.
DMT thing? Was it the DMT thing that got you that way, or
Not necessarily. I think that all that part of my life showed me that there is a spiritual realm,
right, right, right,
which
right.
led
Yeah.
me to then start doing research into Christ and history and other things, and then learning about biblical history. gave a decent narrative to explain what our situation is today and where we are in time. And then this theory comes along at the end of like a decade's worth of research, and I'm like, okay, I think this clicks everything into place now. Because I was there with you, you know, and I've been making videos in the past discussing, you know, tribulation and end times eschatology and the second coming of Christ and what's the mark of the beast going to be, who's going to be the antichrist, and pointing fingers and guessing and all these type of things. But the rest of them, you know, but then this topic's come along and I've been soaking it in for like 2, 3 years, and I'm like, okay, so we've been missing the target for a decade if this is the case. We've been taken for a ride. We've been meant, because this is the argument is nothing gets on that TV that
Right.
isn't controlled. Okay, then
Yeah, kind of true. Yeah.
why are Christians allowed to preach about Christ returning? It's never put down or stopped. In fact, most even secular
Yeah.
TV shows mock that idea and always talk about it from that perspective. It's the way we're allowed to discuss Christianity. Christianity looks powerful, like it's growing and it's strong and there's revivals everywhere, but it's all based on the Christ is about to return Zionist dispensationalism type theology. It's not based on the
Right.
millennial reign has already come and gone theology. You know,
Well,
what
I
if,
feel like
you
it
know,
keeps the church weak, actually, in a sense. I feel like it does have some strength, but because it's kind of like it keeps you as a babe where you
mhm,
don't really understand what's going on, and you don't understand who's your enemy either. It just it keeps you sort of in the dark to where you can't really break free and get to a larger level as a body, a
mhm,
church, you know. And of course, a lot of this apologetics too, the same problems with that, because I noticed when I started looking into, I used to debate atheists back in the old days when I first started YouTube. And there was this paper that came out showing all these errors in the Bible. And I went through and debunked them all, right? But when I debunked them, I actually learned a lot because I realized the Hebrew Masoretic was in error. And that's, again, that comes back to what I showed you earlier with the dating and stuff.
mhm.
The Hebrew Masoretic has numerical errors in it. And here's just a couple examples right here. I mean, these are numerical errors right here, but with the dates and timelines. But there's actually a lot of other numerical errors in it too. And then I learned about the Masoretes who created the Masoretic. They're from like the 8th century or something. And they didn't believe in the King of Kings, of course, obviously. So they had a vested interest in getting that out of the text. So you have like Psalm 91 saying his hands and feet will be pierced. And of course, in the Paleo Hebrew, it doesn't have vowel points. In the modern day Hebrew, they put in the vowel points. They put in the vowel points so they can control the commentary. They can control what it says. And so this whole thing, I feel like with the Greek Septuagint, you have a lot better accuracy. It's a better photo of what the original text said. And then you had the Dead Sea Scroll finds, which actually backs up the Septuagint, which is really
Mhm.
interesting. And so this is so like the devil's been trying to hide it even in ancient manuscripts. Like he's trying to hide the truth
Mhm.
and trying to and there's corruption in so many places. In modern translations, you got lots of corruption as well. That's why I like to look at like the King James seems to be pretty good in a lot of respects. It has some errors, but it's a lot better than the modern ones, you know. Um, it's just really strange. There's so many things you have to really dig deep. It's just like Jesus said, "Seek and you shall find." The more you seek, the more you find.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah, well, again, this like this topic comes at the end of a lot of research. I don't think you can just think about what we're talking about here today without already of thinking about a lot of other things for many years prior. You know what I mean? It's one of those topics where it's
oh yeah,
like it's not an entry. This is not an entry level topic
no,
at
this
all.
is not an entry level one.
Not even
My
close.
friend, the researcher guy, he told his grandfather, I think, about that we're already in the living in the time afterwards, and like it's just like he couldn't even wrap his mind around. It's just like blowing his mind and just driving him crazy. Like,
Hmm.
what? You said you already came back? What? Like just like it literally makes their mind blow up. Just
Hmm.
their head explodes. And they just can't handle it.
Would this be?
It
Would
takes a
this?
while. It takes hours for them to even kind of sort of wrap their mind around it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually told a guy called Bo Kennedy. He has his own podcast called the Bump Podcast, and he was talking with me on Sunday, and I told him about this theory, and he's never heard it before, and and I felt bad at the end of it. I was like, I'm sorry, I did that to you,
He's
you know, and but he actually was really he was like, you could see the light turn on in his eyes as I was telling him, and he could tell I was like he was all clicking, you know, in his mind. He was
yeah,
like, because he's a conspiracy podcaster, so he's heard a lot of stuff, you know. So for
right.
him to hear this was actually
Well, it's okay. It might be okay in that case, but if it's a
yeah.
normal dirt dude, you're gonna just make his mind blow up, and he's just gonna.
I see it in the comments. Yeah, a lot of people just get anger is the first. That's the first step, isn't it? You know, to acceptance. Like anger, it starts with anger and then denial. So we'll see.
Yeah.
It's a process. But again, I don't want to say with 100% certainty that this is the case.
Well, yeah.
I'm always like
Oh, yeah.
leave
I've
room.
had so many interpretations of Revelation, it's ridiculous.
Mhm,
I've pretty much had every single interpretation you can think of, pre, post, mid, all these things. And now this is the latest one. And this one, like I'm not I know I still go around and I don't say I know 100% this is it, but this seems to be the best fit out of all my research.
mhm.
And the more I research it, the more things fit. I every time I find something, it seems to fit it.
Yeah.
And I can build this story all around it, and it just everything seems to fall into place really well.
Mhm.
Uh so far.
Yeah,
So
so
far.
far. Well,
Yeah.
that being said, though, let's say we're not supporting that. Okay, well, you don't have to worry about a mark that's coming anymore. They're still
No,
gonna,
no, I'm not saying that.
they're still
No.
gonna. Don't take the mark, even if it does. Even if we're
Oh,
after,
right.
you know, it's like even
It's the
if we're
devil. He's
after.
going to try to repeat. I mean, he's going to try
Exactly,
everything. Yeah, he's
exactly.
yeah, don't take any mark from him, man.
No, that's kind of what's happening, though. What
Right.
I think what we're seeing, and I've always felt. I don't know if you've always felt like this prior to this understanding, but the whole time I was looking for the next mark of the beast, and there were always examples coming, which could be it. And the whole time, like events were happening, like earthquakes here and wars and rumors of wars and the rest of it, you know. And it's going to be like the days of Noah. They're doing genetic engineering experiments.
They are.
They're making hybrids, all this type of thing. And then
Yep.
obviously is the whole stuff going on in Israel, the Holy Land, and and you're watching it all, and I couldn't help but always just feel this feels a little bit contrived. It felt overcomplicated and cheap and like an imitation. Like it felt fake.
It's a narrative
It felt
that
like a
was built,
script was being played out
right? And it
poorly,
might,
you
the
know?
guy that does research for me, he was in the occult, and apparently when they say the word spell, when they cast a spell, the word spell means narrative.
Hmm.
So a lot of people just think of like, some weird magic or something, but in reality, we've been taught that magic is separate from reality.
Hmm.
And like religion, science, magic, reality,
Hmm.
science versus, whatever. So this is the devil's design as well. They're actually united. So religion and science are united.
Hmm.
Magic and reality are united. So when a witch would cast a spell, literally a narrative. So these ideas of narratives all around you in society are actually spells, and you
Hmm.
believe what they're saying, and that's the spell right there.
Yeah, yeah.
People think of like, oh, love spell, right? What if it's a just normal spell to make you believe something that ain't true
Mm.
about, of course, history or whatever? And
Well,
in this case, it could be a narrative spell.
absolutely. No,
Right.
well, magic is art.
Right, that too. Yeah,
Every time
exactly. Yeah,
somebody takes a chisel to stone or pen to paper or paint to canvas or camera to scene, what they're
right,
doing is creating an image, an idol of some kind, and then they're creating a story, a narrative, a
right.
fiction of some kind, which they want to influence your actions with. That's magic. That's the
Right.
point of art, and
That's
that's what.
that's that's
Yeah.
exactly right. That's it. And then people are thinking, oh, magic is like some weird, like spell or something where something supernatural happens. No, it can be just what you said there.
Well,
That's it.
what's funny because people imagine
Simple as
that
that.
people imagine people like Dan Brown who make people do stuff without touching them. He uses the power of influence to make people do
Right.
things, and then that's like a weird demonic type magic. I think that's like a clouding to make you think magic is something it isn't. I think maybe because, like I said, I do think that there are still Nephilim spirits working on Earth
Oh yeah,
before the
of
Lake of
course.
Fire. They're still here. They're not going anywhere till the very
Right.
end. And I do think people can make deals with them to gain weird
Oh yeah, they do.
weird powers, which we could call
The guy that was a
magic.
researcher with me, that's what he did. He literally
Yeah.
made deals with like some of these ancient Egyptian spirits and stuff.
Hmm.
And after he became a Christian, he actually had to deal with that for a while to get rid of
Yeah.
it. Like that's why you don't do that stuff. It's really
Yeah.
stupid because
Absolutely.
it will come after you.
Absolutely.
They want to kill you, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't want to help you.
But when you see those magicians like Dan Brown, he just goes up to somebody and clicks his fingers, and that person passes out instantly.
Oh, I
And
was thinking,
you
I
know,
didn't know this guy. There's a magician named Dan Brown.
yeah.
Okay,
And
I was thinking of like the guy who wrote the book about
He's not the only
Dan
one. He's
Brown.
not the only one, but he's one of those guys who goes around
Okay.
and says like, "I managed to achieve this through power of influence and subtle cues in neuro-linguistic programming," and he has all these words to describe how he
Oh,
how how
okay.
how he did these things. Then, but you look at it, and the guy just straight up went to somebody, flashed his hand in front of his face, and made him collapse and pass out. That's a demon, all right.
Right.
That's not magic. And he can come up with it. Oh, it's just the power of influence and something. But no, that's straight
Oh,
up. That's straight up. The guy's just messing with you and lying to you. He can read people's minds because he has a demon telling him what that person's thinking. It's that type of stuff. That's the smoke and
right.
mirror magic. But then there's the other magic, the more occult magic, which isn't making
Right.
deals with demons. It's what we're talking about. It's art. It's to cast a spell. It's
Right, right,
spelling.
right.
It's
It's
words. You know.
yeah, that and that's what with the book of Enoch, what it's talking about, where the Watchers came down and taught him how to write, taught him how to
Hmm.
do things. Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I think that there some of these guys probably are operating with devils and stuff like that. I'm sure there are some. I don't know which ones. Very well, easily could be the case with that guy. I haven't watched him before, but yeah, I'm not surprised if
It's a
some of that's
it's
happening.
a fine line. Some magic can look like it's demons, but it actually is a simple trick. You know that does happen. But
Yeah, that's true.
I think those magicians, they sprinkle in one of those tricks with the obvious ones you can explain, which are unexplainable. You know what I
But
mean?
there's actually also on the Christian side, you have miraculous gifts as well. I've
Hmm.
actually, when I used to talk to people on the street, and I actually I knew what they were thinking too. Like God would tell me stuff, and I actually there's this guy who was drunk, and I'm talking to him. He's just kind of laughing at me, and I literally told him exactly what he was thinking. And he started crying instantly, and I was like, that
Hmm.
was kind of weird. But so there are spiritual gifts like that. Like my friend, he would heal people back in the old days when we were
Oh,
around them and
absolutely, yeah,
stuff.
of course.
Yeah.
It's all like I said.
So
Anything they can do is just an imitation of what God can do.
right,
At the end of the day,
yeah.
we've
But
learned that
I
through stories in the Bible. But
yeah,
there's this
yeah.
contingent of magicians who use that knowledge and power for personal
Right,
gain
right.
and corruption and control, and they're the occultist, magician, evil controllers who are using these. And at the end of the day, a film, for example, just a simple movie you go to
Yep.
watch at the cinema, that's witchcraft. What they're trying to do is influence you the way you think and perceive reality by virtue of flashing images in front of your face and a narrative, a script of some kind. And you will leave that thing you went to go and watch in that movie theater with a new ingrained view or perspective on something based on what you've just seen. If you're that
Right.
easily swayed. Some people don't get so easily swayed, don't get me wrong, you know what I mean? But the aim is if they can get you to react a certain way to an event without ever talking to you directly, then that's a witch. They have used
Oh yeah.
magic to influence you and your decisions and the way you act in reality without ever touching you or even talking to you. That's magic. That's influence. And
Right,
that's,
and I mean the
you
word
know,
Hollywood that comes from I think the wood that they used. Hollywood is like a magic
yeah,
wand type of wood or something, right?
yeah,
And of course, don't be surprised. Like we've heard stories of the music industry and all these. They'll literally do rituals over these movies or music or something. I'm sure
yeah.
some of that happens. I'm not surprised if they do it.
Hmm.
And so I used to do videos a little bit about that back in the old days, but I don't do them so much anymore. But I talk about that here and there a little bit. Yeah, I agree with you. That stuff, and some of it's like just normal things that you think is not magic,
Hmm.
just straight up influence, and then some of it is actual supernatural stuff.
Hmm.
But they're actually combined, and that was one of the things he mentioned. A lot of occultists would write, and like you said with art, art is magic.
Hmm.
And people don't realize that they think everything's separate, like science and religion, when they're actually combined. And the devil, that is actually a spell, you believing that religion and science are separate. That
Hmm.
is a spell. That is a narrative that you've believed. That's actually something that was cast on you in your mind, and that's what you've believed since you were young.
Hmm.
And so that's making your mind break out of all these things that they essentially put onto your mind. Like you were talking about the shape, of course, of the Earth. I don't believe it's flat or whatever, but I do believe though that we could be living in a simulation of some sort where, like, if you play a video game, they don't actually, like, if you play Grand Theft Auto, they don't actually make like a circular Earth going around the sun and then zoom in on a city and then build the city. They just build a city with all the variables that would make it look like you're on a planet going around the sun, right?
Hmm.
So I kind of feel like we're in a simulation that makes us feel like we're on a planet spinning around the sun, when in reality it's something made up, kind of like you're like that movie, was it Truman or whatever,
Hmm.
where he thinks, it's just like a video game. Like you think you're on this planet spinning around the sun, and
Hmm.
it even looks like it. You can look at the stars, even the stars move like they're supposed to, the star. I forgot what the word is, but they actually do the swirl, because it shows as if we're spinning around the sun or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what if it was actually intentionally made to look that way? And actually, maybe in reality, the real higher level living in the afterlife, we're actually on an actual planet that is actually going around the sun or something, who knows, right? I don't know what we're on. I mean, it could be like the Matrix where you think you're in, you know, I always think of it like that, but I don't think we're in an AI program. I don't believe like Elon
No,
Musk some AI program, but
I've
I think
always
it's God's testing ground, like God's
yeah,
testing ground, something. Yeah.
exactly. That's the point. That's the point I always try and say. Like, look, there's precedence for simulation theory. There really is, because the Earth, the reality has clear code embedded into it, clear patterns, rules, laws of mathematical principles that can manifest and be measured clearly, and it very much does behave like a created, designed machine of some kind.
Oh yeah.
A simulation you could call it. But I would always argue whether you could call it a simulation or you want, it's still God's creation. That's
Right,
what
right,
you,
right.
that's what you're talking about at the end of the day. So don't. And I think a lot of people then start to think, well, nothing matters then because it's all just a simulation. It's like, no, no, no. This is it. This
No,
is
no, it
it.
matters.
This is what you've got. Yeah.
It's a testing ground from God. And the reason why I think it could be something other than the real Earth spinning around the sun is because, like, what if it's a simulation of that? Because there's things like the full cult pendulum that do things that they shouldn't be doing. Like it actually changes its movement during a solar eclipse, which makes no sense if it was gravity
Hmm.
moving it. Like, so that would make you think there's some sort of magnetic interference or something. There's
Hmm.
a lot of weird stuff in science that don't make sense. Like they have no answer for it. Like there's certain experiments they did that they just explain away the results. They don't even have an answer to it. Like Michelson, Morley, Sagnac, all these. Like they said there was no ether, and then you go to Sagnac, and he actually proved there was an ether,
Hmm.
and that it's actually just so we're motionless or something. And then you have these like the Aries failure, which makes you feel indicates that the sky's moving and not the Earth. So like, how do you explain all this? But then it looks like you're still going around the sun because you have the stars moving a certain way. What if it's just making you believe you're going around the sun and it's a simulation to appear that way?
Hmm.
Kind of like you're in a shake, you shake up those globes with the snow in them, right? Like we're in one of those, like you think you're in this real place, but you're not,
Hmm.
you know? And I'm not saying that's the case. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe scientists just haven't figured out why these things happen. I don't know. Who
No.
knows?
What I know is it's not what NASA has told us. Okay.
Right. Well, I,
Just
I have a lot of questions for them. Yeah, I know what you're
yeah.
saying, man.
There's some
Like the
deception
moon landing, all that stuff.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of
there's a lot of stuff.
deception going on with everything
Yeah,
that comes out of that. So I'm happy not knowing though personally, and
I'm just kind of in the middle too. Like I don't know
yeah.
what it is, but I just come up with the simulation because I think that makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Uh, I think Elon Musk is actually kind of saying the truth there, although he thinks it's like AI or some crazy thing
Well,
like that.
a lot of Gnostic thinkers believe we are trapped in prison flesh bodies in a simulated matrix style system by an evil, cruel creator god who created a flawed system. That's what Gnostics
Right,
believe. So that's what the Matrix is
right.
based on. The Matrix is based on this concept that we are humans who have their consciousness trapped in a fake reality by evil robot overlords. That's basically the archons of the Gnostic perspective, and
That's a narrative twisting the Bible, where
it is.
basically,
It's saying
yeah,
God
it's
is
a
an evil
narrative.
prison keeper rather than the
Right,
creator of all things, who
right.
who made a good thing.
In
Um,
reality, the devil came along and got turned us into corrupt,
yeah,
beings or whatever.
it's trying to say, God is fallible and created a corrupt system, and we suffer
Right,
within it, and He doesn't care about us. And that's the opposite of the gospel, and
right.
it's kind
Yeah.
of, and
Yeah.
it's also putting the blame on God rather than ourselves. It kind of takes no responsibility for what the part we played in messing everything up. You know what I mean? So there is that
Yeah.
as well. But
Well, I think it's a part of the test. You don't learn many things without being tested or going through some hard, difficult thing. I mean, I've seen NDEs where they say that Earth is actually a place to where you gain wisdom, because you can't gain wisdom if everything's given to you and everything's awesome. You don't really gain any wisdom. If you go through some pain and stuff, you actually learn a lot. And I don't know if it's true, but I've heard NDEs talk about that. Like that's why people come to Earth, is so that they can gain wisdom
hmm,
and become a better person. You go through pain, you learn, you adapt, you become a better person. But if everything's given to you, you're kind of like the silver spoon kid that doesn't respect anything, don't care about anything, don't understand the value of anything, you
hmm.
know. given a free car, Porsche, just drive it around, wreck it, doesn't matter, just get another one.
It's interesting you were talking about near-death experiences there, and you get these people who have these moments where they die and then come back, and you got me thinking about the concept of resurrection. Just to get back to the millennial reign topic, and obviously there is this huge contentious point in it at the end of the millennial reign. It says the rest of the dead are resurrected. Now this poses a lot of questions for this theory. So does that mean we in the little season are the
Okay.
resurrected dead? Does that
That's
mean
my No, yeah, you can continue. We'll have to end in maybe a few minutes because
okay?
they all want me upstairs in a
They
minute
all
here.
want you. You're a wanted man.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
well, maybe I can leave it on that cliffhanger. But it's just the idea of this poses a lot of questions of reincarnation and resurrection. So are we people perhaps who have already lived a life before Christ turned up and before there was the choice to be saved? And this is
You know
us.
about Origin, right? Origin.
I've not heard of that. No.
Oh, Origen is a famous theologian in the past. He's actually one of the most famous theologians, but they destroyed a lot of his works.
Hmm.
He's kind of like Nikola Tesla. They destroyed all his works. Same kind of idea. Maybe he had too much knowledge or whatever. Apparently, he was as popular or as well known as Augustine, and he also apparently contributed to a lot of our theology today in some ways. But at any rate, he believed that in was it origin of spirits. I forgot what the term is, but it has to do with not necessarily reincarnation, but something like you could come back, regeneration of souls or something like that. And they called it heresy. I think they called it, and it wasn't him that really came up with it. It was his followers called the Origenists, and they got condemned in the Fifth Ecumenical Council. But it actually wasn't ratified by the Pope because the Pope believed it as well at the time. So there's some really strange things in theology and our history that have to do with the concept of people coming back
Hmm.
and being able to live again. I'm not saying it's true because I kind of feel like it's probably not, but I could see how that, I could see how someone could come up with that though. And I'm not saying that perhaps what Origin was talking about, I have to look into more detail, but there's something like that he was talking about as well.
Well, I think
So,
one of the strongest arguments is that it seems like John the Baptist was Elijah, and even Christ
oh,
mentions
right, right,
that
right.
he
Yeah. Okay.
came
I
in.
got you.
Yeah, he came in the spirit of Elijah. And Elijah never actually died. Technically, he was
Right. So was he John the
transliterated.
Baptist, right? That's
Yeah,
kind of,
this is what I mean. And I think
yeah.
it's not. I think get reincarnation out of your head. This isn't endless cycles where you keep coming back. This
No, no,
is
no. It's not
this
like that.
this is
No.
God appointed resurrection at a specific time at His decree. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right. I
That's
understand what you're saying.
yeah. And it seems like is it possible that the rest of the dead, those who lived before Christ,
Got
who
resurrected.
didn't have a
Right.
chance for salvation, can now come back and have a choice. And then at the
Maybe.
end
I don't know.
and maybe that's what the little season
Maybe.
is. Maybe that's the point of the little season to
I
give
mean,
the
it's a little
choice.
complex. I'd have to look into it. I haven't really had a chance to look into that, but it is interesting that Origin had something similar to that
Mm.
that he talked about.
I'll have to
Yeah.
look into it now. You mention it myself to see what's in
All right.
there. But I'll let you go,
All right. Yeah.
Tony.
No, that was long, man. What was that, like 2 hours? I mean, we were on here for a
Almost,
while.
almost,
Yeah,
yeah.
man. So that was good. We talked about everything pretty much.
Pretty much. Yeah, it was good. It was good
All right.
catching up with you. It's been a long time, but honestly, it's great catching up with you. Stay in touch. We'll do it again sometime.
All right, yeah. It was a lot of fun, Paul.
Okay, take it
All right. See
easy.
you later.
Thanks for
Yep.
speaking.
See you.
Well, wasn't that fun, everybody? That was a laugh, wasn't it? Yeah, me and Tony go way back. If you don't know, we used to collaborate a couple of times, maybe around 2015, 2016 period or something like that. Back in the day, when it was Crisis Actor Central and false flags all over the place, that type of time. It was a tumultuous political time as well. And we used to get together and theorize about what was coming next. And obviously, I took a break for a long time, about 5 years, and he's still been going at it. And he reached out to me about a month or two ago and says, "Yeah, we've got to discuss this millennial reign topic. It's blown my mind." And so I thought, okay, then great. Yeah, let's do it. And I don't think he doesn't live stream often, and I think he's trying to figure out how it works. So that was kind of a test run for him. So yeah, that you might see that conversation on his channel soon. I think he recorded it. So yeah, that was good fun, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the chat if you thought that was good. Um, I am joining Noel Hadley on his channel tomorrow. He's invited me on to talk about the clowns, so that should be good. I'm looking forward to that. And at the end of the week on Friday, I am joining JT follows JC. Jason runs the Decoding Babylon podcast, and I'm joining him and Alpha Talks for a three-way conversation, a live show about this topic as well. So that should be good fun. A bit of fun collaboration going on, just talking it out, and sharing ideas. Because again, I've told you this, guys, from the start. I'm not an expert. I just have some ideas and thoughts, and I'm just trying to hash this idea out with the rest of you. And come along for the ride, have a listen, share your own ideas in the chat as well, guys. Um, so yeah, people are saying, yeah, I've heard of you, Paul, from Tony. That's great. Yes, clown, says Fiona. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I still do the clown thing. I've actually been writing today. And I've been fleshing out the chapter about what it means for each individual part of a clown's costume and how it relates to the Nephilim. I've been doing that lately, and I'm just about to get on to mimes and jesters, but I've broken down the clown, so that's what I've been writing about. And I've just finished off a whole chapter on secret societies and the clown and the circus, and that ends with a full like 6-page chapter on the Royal Order of the Jesters. And I think I'm going to talk about the Royal Order of the Jesters with Noel tomorrow, because it's not something I've talked about a lot yet. I'm going to have to make a separate video, I think, for the Nephilim Look Like Clowns series on the Jesters specifically, because they're a huge part of the whole topic. But yeah, they are messed up, is the only thing I can say. Like, those guys are the worst of the worst. So yeah, they definitely need to be they definitely need to be talked about. Um, the name of the clown book. Broken broken down the clown. Yeah, well, no, I'm going to stick to Nephilim Look Like Clowns for ease of mind, and but who knows? Who knows? Maybe I can add a little subheading to the title of the book. Broken down the clown. Yeah. Yeah, but there are a lot of jesters. You're right on average, Joe. They are perverts. That's the best way to describe them. Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. So yeah, I'll be talking about that with Noel tomorrow. Like I said, I'm joining the guys at Alpha Talks and JC. JT. We're gonna connect and talk about this topic too. So it's a busy week for me. I've got live shows all week. I think I've got Thursday off. I'm releasing a video tomorrow, which is the last section, or maybe the second to last section of a podcast I did with the Question the Narrative guys. I just thought it was quite a nice, fun talk we had. So I've split the whole 2 hour talk up into 6 segments, and you can watch all of them on my channel. And I actually have plans to make some extra recordings soon, adding to the tips for truthers as well. And also, if you guys are sticking around and didn't know, I do have a Rumble account now, and I am in the process currently of ripping all of my videos off of YouTube onto a hard drive, and I will be then uploading my entire back catalogue of like 300 videos onto Rumble as well. And then hopefully from then on, once I've established that, I can then upload to both simultaneously. I'm trying to diversify the platforms I'm on, just in case, just in case everything gets ripped away from me one day. So yeah, go if you go and check it out. I haven't got the link in the description. I didn't think I'd announce it today, to be honest, but I thought I might as well bring it up. There's one video on there right now, which is the 15-minute summary of my Nephilim clown theory. But yeah, the Billikens of the ROG. I've talked about the Billiken as well. Absolutely, I've mentioned everything about them. But yeah, guys, go to Rumble, and have I even got the tab open on my channel? Let me have a look. uh, yeah, here it is. I'll share the screen with you. So yeah, here it is. Go to Rumble, guys. It's just Understanding Conspiracy. You'll find me and my logo. I've got 61 people already come over. I've got one video up on there, but I will be diversifying and expanding and doing things on there as well. And probably sometimes there's just topics I cannot talk about on YouTube and just not allowed. So I may put that video on Rumble instead. So things like that may start happening. So it might be worth just if you have Rumble and you're into that, go and follow me on there as well. So I'm going to start advertising this a bit more now just to get the people to come over. But yeah, guys, yeah, I hope you enjoyed that little talk with Tony. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the great turnout as well. It's like a lot of people have joined this conversation, which is wonderful. And make sure to come over to the Unexpected Cosmology channel tomorrow night. I think it's 8 p.m. UK or 9 p.m. UK time. I can't remember now. It's the usual time, where I'll be talking with Noel on his channel. So yeah, come over if you want to catch me. There's no live show on my channel tomorrow, just a usual video upload in the middle of the day. But my wife has just posted the Rumble link in the chat there if you want to go over and sign up to Rumble as well. Again, guys, all you're going to see on there over the next few months is me uploading all my old videos in batches. Yeah, maybe I'll try and do like 10 a day or something like that for like 30 days or something. And then once my entire back catalogue is saved up onto there, I will be uploading any video that goes to YouTube. Will also be uploaded to Rumble as well, just to keep up with it. But it's going to be a long, grueling, horrible process for me. So please bear with me on that one. Please be patient. But I'm surprised this video already has 100 views. To be honest, I didn't think anyone on Rumble would be looking, but there you go. Who knew? Who knew? If you didn't know as well, I'm actually on Odyssey. I don't know if you know about Odyssey. But Odyssey already automatically uploads all my videos straight to YouTube every time I. No, it's not on there. Maybe I just type in. There I am. Yeah, it automatically, every video I upload automatically goes onto Odyssey anyway, and these get like 4 views, 10 views, or something like that. No, I don't think anyone uses it. So all my work is backed up on this. But again, it's not really a platform anyone seems to use at all. It gets some views, so it's better than nothing, you know. But it's good to know the work is all there if YouTube does decide to just disappear one day. But I really do want to get onto Rumble. It seems to be where it's all happening and where it's at. It's where everyone's gone to for the obviously truthers and free speech and the like seem to appreciate Rumble. But all my work, actually, look at all these videos. I have a lot of videos to upload. Like this is going to take a long time to re-upload all these videos to Rumble. So bear with me, please. I've been doing this for a long time, so I have a huge back catalogue to get through. But yeah, there you go, guys. So a bit of an update for you. I'm going to leave it there. My throat's getting dry. Thanks for listening. And as always, God bless.